we rejoin our tale of Tynemouth Priory and Castle during the reign of Henry VIII. Whilst the monks at Tynemouth, up until the dissolution, by and large represented peace and spirituality, Henry VIII had other ideas, and Tynemouth Priory soon became a representation of war and defence. Henry, feeling somewhat threatened by the newly formed alliance between France and Spain, wasted no time in instructing his commissioners to modify and equip the headland at Tynemouth for defensive purposes. He sent a fleet of ships and an army under the command of the Earl of Hertford, and the headland became a military camp and supply base whilst plans were drawn up for further fortifications. The real test of Tynemouth's defences came, however, during the 1640s, with the onset of the English Civil War. The King, Charles II, had few supporters in the north, and the port of Newcastle was the only large port here to remain loyal to him. It remained firmly royalist until shortly after the Battle of Marston Moor on July 2nd, 1644, where the port was taken by Scots forces fighting for Parliament. Following this defeat, the Northern Royalists all but abandoned the counties of the north, having lost access to the European continent via the North Sea ports. This was by no means the last war of the 17th century. By the middle of the century, the Dutch had built by far the biggest merchant fleet in Europe. They dominated trade, which, in turn, brought about a war, known historically as the First Dutch War, as it was the first of four, which lasted for 2 years between 1652 and 1654. The defences at Tynemouth remained important during this war, and the garrison had a master gunner and 20 gunners with 7 guns and a small infantry attachment. A new barracks and a lighthouse were built during the 1660s by Colonel Edward Villiers, who also built himself a house using stone from the priory. The headland at Tynemouth continued to be an important defence throughout the 17th and 18th centuries. There was always a small infantry garrison and a master gunner with a few regulars. These were joined by local militia, sailors and volunteers during the Jacobite rebellions of 1715 and 1745, the 7 Years' War of 1756 to 1763, the American War of 1776 to 1783, and the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars of 1793 to 1815. During the 1780s, the castle gatehouse was adapted into a barracks by Captain E. Durnford, where a small detachment of regulars from a Royal Artillery marching company maintained the guns. In the last 20 years of the 19th century, Germany, with its growing naval forces, began to be seen as a threat to the north of England, and in 1882, Lord Morley's government committee recognised the need to protect the ports in the northeast. The committee recommended various defensive measures to protect coal exports, armament factories, and the Tyne's extensive shipyards. In 1888, a submarine minefield was laid to protect the river mouth. By the outbreak of the First World War, the headland at Tynemouth had become the centre of an integrated fire command. This fire command was also utilised during World War II, although towards the end of the war, the batteries were increasingly manned by the Home Guard. Along with the end of World War II, also came the end of Tynemouth Castle's centuries-long association with war, and in 1960, the military buildings were almost entirely demolished in an attempt to clear the headland of any of its post-medieval features. From Romans to Vikings to Normans and beyond, from war to war to war, the mouth of the River Tyne has seen almost 2,000 years of human history.